Tēnā rā koutou, nau mai haramai ki tēnei hui, o Prosperous Napier. Welcome to our Prosperous Napier Committee meeting this afternoon. Just a reminder that we are being live streamed on Council's Facebook page, and we'll kick off with apologies. We have one from Mayor Wise. Can I have someone to move those? Thank you, Councillor Mawson, seconded by Councillor Brown. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
And none against, so that is carried. Do we have any conflicts of interest for today's agenda? None. We have no one in the public forum today for this meeting. I'll hand over for announcements by our acting mayor.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just a couple of announcements in the public. I'd like to acknowledge the passing of Andrew Austin, a member of our local government community. He was the editor of Hawke's Bay Today for a number of years, and more recently with Hawke's Bay app. So just acknowledge his family at this time. And my second announcement through you, Madam Chair, is just letting everyone in the community know that Te Matatini started yesterday, which is our national kapahaka festival based in New Plymouth at the moment. So that's on from yesterday through to the 1st of March, free to air on TV. So get involved and support those 55 groups from around the country that are doing that. Kia ora.
Kia ora. Thank you, Acting Mayor Brosnan. Great pānui. I've checked in and we have no announcements from our Acting Deputy Chief Executive. Any minor matters on the agenda? Carl, great. We'll kick off then with confirmation of minutes. We have the minutes from the last Prosperous Napier Committee meeting from the 10th of October last year, including the public excluded minutes which were previously circulated, hoping to be taken as a true and accurate record of the meeting. Thank you, Councillor Mawson, for moving, and thank you, Councillor Gregg, for seconding. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Thank you. Well, our first agenda item today is an update on the proposal around the Abbeyfield housing that came out of the 3-year plan. I'm going to hand over to Stephanie Murphy to introduce us to our guests that we have here today, both in person and online, and welcome Brian, who's going to present the paper also. Thank you.
Good afternoon, everyone. I'd just like to introduce a couple of people joining us today in relation to the Abbeyfield housing proposal update that Brian will run us through shortly. Firstly, Mark Billis, who is the chair of Abbeyfield Hawke's Bay, and also online joining us is Lucy Miller, who is from Abbeyfield Hawke's Bay as well as a committee member, and then also Ruth Seabright, who is from Abbeyfield New Zealand and Abbeyfield Properties Limited. So effectively the three of them have been working with us on the proposal, and you'll recall that this comes out of the 3-year plan decision that was made at the end of June, and Mark and Lucy also presented to the 3-year plan hearings and submitted through that process. And this is I guess a great outcome for us, making a step forward in supporting our housing strategy and the area that we wish to focus on going forward. So without further ado, I will hand over to Brian, who has put the paper together, and we'll run through it.
Kia ora, thank you.
Good afternoon. As has already been stated, the purpose of the report is to update Council on the proposal from Abbeyfield, also to obtain approval in principle for the proposal, subject to certain conditions, and also approval to provide a conditional letter of support to Abbeyfield to assist in their funding applications. As been stated, Abbeyfield is a community housing provider, and as already been stated today, this proposal started with a submission by Abbeyfield to the 3-year plan. And following on from that, when Council was considering the housing divestment issue, Council resolved on 31st of October to commence discussions with Abbeyfield to facilitate delivering strategic housing priorities for Napier on the Green Matters East site, including site due diligence, feasibility and commercial terms. So we've been having discussions with Abbeyfield. So the proposal, in short, involves subdivision of the land. So we're talking about obviously the site on the corner of Tate Drive and what is it? Spriggs Crescent, sorry, which is the land where we have Green Matters East Retirement Village, the Green Matters East Hall, and all that land is on one title. So the proposal would be to subdivide that land, make that available on a long-term lease to Abbeyfield. Abbeyfield would be responsible for all costs, the construction, obtaining consents, etc., and council would enter into a long-term lease at no rental. So in effect, council is providing the land at no cost in return for the social outcome of the Abbeyfield village, which really adds another sort of offering to the retirement housing in Napier, in that it's a more a shared communal type village and living, as distinct from council's villages that are standalone independent units. So it adds to that offering, doesn't it, really, of what council currently offers. So that's sort of it, really. It says no cost to council. It provides new net housing for the elderly in Napier. And anything you want to add in terms of the housing side of things?
No, not at all. I'm just happy to take any questions.
Before we do, Steph, I thought I'd just give Mark the opportunity to share with us how the process has been from Abbeyfield's perspective so far.
Good afternoon, everybody. Look, it's been fabulous, really. We're really impressed with the council's enthusiasm for the project, with the strategic approach that they've had with us, and I would if I had to give it a score, to be 10 out of 10. Absolutely fantastic. Yeah, and as Brian mentioned, this is a kind of a slightly different edge to senior housing that the council may have been involved in. This is there's an element of pastoral care involved here, where the community aspect of the shared living assists with I suppose ensuring that the pastoral care of the residents is kind of maintained. We've also got outsiders who are in and out every day and not necessarily checking up on people, but certainly keeping a casting eye of how things are operating within the house. So the idea here is that we're overcoming the loneliness and the sort of vulnerability part of senior housing, which hopefully is gone. So no, look, it's been a fabulous process, and we're very impressed, actually.
Thank you, Mark. We'll take a 10 out of 10 any day. I will open for questions from the table. Councillor Crystal.
Just through the chair, how do you select your residents? So how would people of Napier go about, if this goes ahead, obtaining a room there?
Yeah, so they would make an application to us, and we would then assess that. What's happened in other houses is that we often have a period of trial, so that, I don't know, for 3 months or so, something like that, somebody would kind of move in once they'd been assessed and just see how it goes. Sometimes it's not for them, and other times they're not fitting in as well as they might. And I think it's all done. My understanding in other houses is all done with a very high amount of care and respect in regard to that selection process and the interviewing. It's done generally by committee and others. And when the other thing which I suppose is important is that when medical dependency becomes high, the house doesn't generally cope with that overly well, you know. So any care that's available to people that they would have in their own houses normally is also available through the Abbey Field House. But as I say, once the dependency, the medical dependency becomes very high, then they need to probably find somewhere that's got better care facilities than we would have in terms of that medical. But yeah, I don't know if that answers your question, but there's a...
It's just, I guess, just so how will people be aware that they can apply? I guess is the, how do you put it out there to the community?
Yeah, well, I think that there are 14 of these other houses in New Zealand, but none in the Hawke's Bay region. So I think, to be fair, we've already just in the sort of public awareness that we've already been doing through the likes of sausage sizzles and raffles and quizzes and other things. There is a reasonable awareness of it, and we've already got a list of I think probably up to 20 people who are already on our list, and we haven't got to stage one. Yeah. So I don't think we're going to have a problem, filling it. It would strike me that we could have 10 of these and they'd all be going. It still wouldn't be full. But yeah. So it's just an awareness thing, I suppose. And we will once we have this, once we have a presence in Napier, we'll certainly be putting it out there with signage and lots of other fundraising aspects. Will, I think, bring it to people's attention.
Mm-hmm. Thank you.
Thank you. Acting Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you very much, Madam Chair. Thank you for the paper. I just had a question around the concept design. So my question is this similar to other builds that you have done, or is this bespoke for the piece of property that we have here? And the reason I ask is that sort of covered outdoor area in the middle was interesting to me, considering I think the original sort of designs and layouts that we saw back in annual plan, and I just wondered, is this new for you?
To be fair, no, not really. I think the design philosophies and the design concepts that were present in the original and also in other houses have been followed through here. I suppose one of the things which we thought was quite important for the elderly or seniors to be living is to have somewhere which was kind of, if you like, a safe outdoor space. So the internal shared courtyard is a nice area, one, for them to have that sort of community aspect, but two, I think to have that sort of surety of outdoor. Anybody who comes into that outdoor space is either invited or known. And I think it's quite an important thing, especially in Hawke's Bay climate, last few nights with doors open and stuff at night time. It's nice to be able to do that. So no, despite the design isn't necessarily bespoke. Obviously it's been tailored for this site, but the aspects of it in terms of the studio size, shape and access are pretty much a repeat of all of the Abbey Field houses that we've done. And this particular one, I was involved with some of the design aspects, and it's a little bit of a rinse and repeat from the Caddy House, which is, I believe, currently in construction now. So yeah, the similar design was taken from that, and then it was placed on site to try and fit the 14 units to have some sort of that sort of internal amenity and to comply with the rough agreements of the Napier City Council district scheme in terms of setbacks and other things. So.
Great, thank you.
Councillor Grigg.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor. Just a question about rates. It says that Abbey Field is to pay the council rates. Is that the residents who pay, or is it the housing provider who pays?
No, that would be the housing provider that pays. All of the residents will pay a set fee, essentially sort of per person in the space, and that will cover their food and their accommodation, their power and other amenities, and including the insurances and rates and all those other things. And to be fair, look, one of the big things from my point of view was that is all covered by National Super. So the amount that you get from National Super will cover all of these aspects. So essentially that makes the house available to anyone and everybody over 65 that would qualify for Super, and that's a big plus in my eyes.
Councillor Bowe.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just picking up on that, in terms of the tenants in your other villages, and I think this is a fabulous idea and it's great, are they mostly people who are living solely on the pension? And If so, what proportion of their pension generally do they pay for their rent, then their board and the electricity and all those things that come with it?
Yeah, sure. It's probably a question that Susan might like to, that Ruth might like to hop on the end of as well. But yeah, essentially the proportion is relatively high in terms of if you're just looking at that super amount. I think it's somewhere between 90 to 95, maybe 85 to 90% of that super is taken with the. But this is for food. There is a housekeeper involved, right? So there's food is supplied on the daily basis, and then you've got the room and, as I say, all the other amenities, power and et cetera, et cetera. So that was it. And sorry, what was the first part of the question about the selection process?
No, it was just where most of the, what was about the rent and would people living just on the super manage it? Because I know as an older person, if you only have a few dollars left over from your super, it's very hard to go to the, it's $60 to go to the doctor.
Yes, that's true. Yeah.
Other specialists, is there any kind of backup specialists? Subsidies or support?
Yeah, well, there will be other sort of nets that would pick up if there was hardship, etc. But yeah, the other thing is worth pointing out is that I suppose in terms of that assessment criteria for members to enter the Abbeyfield House, one of them would be I suppose in regard to assets and kind of net worth. I suppose at the end of the day, if you've kind of got plenty, this isn't really the answer for you. And I suppose hesitate to say that we would want to exclude people solely on that basis, but really, the idea here is to provide for people who can't match other models, if you like, the Rymans and the other types of models,
like
etc.
Rentals.
Yeah, etc. Or purchasing, there's no capital cost to come here either. So the other models are generally to have a capital cost to go in and then a program depreciation, etc. So there's none of that happens here. And to be fair, I understand that Abbeyfield have looked and considered that, and it just doesn't sort of fit. It doesn't fit the model, or I think fit the philosophy that Abbeyfield are wanting to fit into in terms of the community.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Yeah, some really good questions, and obviously there's a level of interest from elected members around some of the specifics to do with the program. So I think it would be worthwhile if you have those questions to fire them through to you, Steph, so that we can pull that information and make it available to us, probably on the hub or something like that. And I'll just bring us back to the recommendation and see if there's any questions or clarifications needed in regards to those 4 points that we're looking at today. Oh, kia ora, Councillor Tareha.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just regarding the long-term lease with Abbeyfield, lease period, initial term of 33 years with the right of renewal, to take total period to 50 years. And all those terms highlights to me that Abbeyfield takes on all the responsibility, costs, etc. However, I'm just wondering, at the end of the 50 years, who's responsible for the assets at the end of the lease?
We would anticipate they would have to revert to council, I guess, at the end of our land, and that would be what normally happens at the end of any land lease, or council may require, we would build that into the lease. So normally in a lease, land lease, there would be the option at the discretion of council either to request that they be removed or they be retained for council. And I guess in 50 years' time would depend on the age and condition of them and whether they're still fit for purpose and what have you. So we would build that into the lease. Yeah.
And those conditions have been discussed loosely and are acceptable to Abbeyfield as well.
Councillor Brown.
Kia ora. Thank you for the proposal, and it all looks good. Just wondering if we have a precedent before this around this type of lease agreement for housing, so people can lease providing social housing.
Not that I'm aware of, no. And definitely no current, at least like that for community housing, and I'm not aware historically of any.
However, just through the chair to add comment there, and Ruth or Mark might be able to provide some additional information. This is a common model that Abbeyfield New Zealand and Abbeyfield Properties are using across the countryside, and they have 13 odd facilities and similar setup to this.
I'm looking for any further questions or discussion before we consider the officer's recommendation. So we have 4 parts in front of us to agree in principle to subdivide part of the council-owned land, noting that the agreement in principle is subject to Abbeyfield negotiating a lease on terms. So Councillor Taitaka, that speaks to your point, thank you, before. We require that the terms of lease, mortgage terms, etc. are brought back to us for final approval. And the outcome that we're sort of seeking today, I guess, as well, is that letter of intent to be provided to Abbeyfield so that they're able to move forward into the next phase of financing and development. So we have those 4 parts there. Have I got someone to move those, please? Thank you, Councillor Bogue, and seconded Councillor Crystal. Would you like to speak to that, Councillor?
Yes, thank you very much. As a portfolio holder housing, I'm absolutely delighted to move this proposal. Abbeyfield's something we have looked at over the years and never really done much more than put our foot in the water. So I'm really delighted that we have found an appropriate site, and this project, this possibility, fits in really well with our housing strategy. There's great synergy with the pensioner village next door and the facilities that are available close by. So we have an increasing number of older people who are retiring without owning a house, so cannot move into a retirement village. And if they're living on the pension, they can't pay market rentals. So we're trying to provide for as many of those as we can in our own pensioner flats, but this is a great combination and excellent use of this piece of land, and I wholeheartedly support the proposal.
Councillor Crystal, would you like to speak?
I just totally agree with what Councillor Bogue has said. This is a great outcome from our long-term plan, and to see this happen, and one of our strategic things is to be enabling council, and I think this really fits that bill that we're enabling and getting other people involved in doing these activities. And as Councillor Bogue said, we can't get enough housing really for our elderly with the baby boomers all coming through. So yeah, it's a great outcome as long as it all goes to plan.
And I'm assuming you would like to speak to this as well, Councillor Mawson.
Yes, please, through the chair. As the positive ageing portfolio holder, I just want to have a quick note and say that, as community leaders, it's our role to invest in the city and in the long-term well-being of our members of the community, and senior community members have traditionally been underinvested, and this is a fantastic opportunity to strengthen that. So, thank you.
So we've had 3 in support. Do I have anyone who wants to speak against this recommendation? Seems very wise. All right, well, I will put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, it's carried. Thank you, Ruth. Thank you, Lucy, for being here as well. Thank you, Mark. Cool.
Thanks very much.
Thank you very much.
Agenda item number 2, we have our Treasury activity and funding update. Welcome Gary Hrustinsky, our Corporate Finance Manager, to present the paper.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Good afternoon.
Okay, so the purpose of this report is to update the Prosperous Napier Committee on financial activities at Council. Since our last report, there's been $25 million worth of borrowing, but we're still $30 million below our projected borrowing figure for the financial year. So in addition to a 0.5% rate cut by the Reserve Bank of New Zealand, we're now in a position to be able to apply for green loans through the local government funding agency. Although it's only a few basis points discount, it does mean that for every $1 million that we're borrowing, it's an additional saving, and it will be cumulative over time as well. So, and just something that also to highlight is with the recent drop in rates, we're currently borrowing now for 13-year terms that we were just a few years ago for 3-year terms. So that means that the overall cost for council is coming down too, which is encouraging. And I'll take the remainder of the report as read.
Thank you, Gary. I open up for questions.
I have a
Certainly, Councillor Bowe.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. Do the rates for the LGFA, are they affected at all by the Reserve Bank rates?
Okay. Through the Chair, yes, any form of borrowing in New Zealand will be, and so that's been reflected in recent rates. So as the OCR, the official cash rate, has dropped, so too has the lending rate. And on the flip side, when that eventually goes up again, which maybe in a few more years, we'll also see those rates increasing too.
Any takers? Anyone else? No? Nice, simple one. I think you've covered everything off really well. Thanks, Gary. We'll move to the recommendation that we receive this this report. Can I have someone to move it, please? Councillor Brosnan, Deputy Mayor Brosnan, and Councillor Gregg to second. Would you like to speak to that?
Thank you very much for what was a really clear report, especially for those of us where finances are not possibly our number one thing. I think you made it extremely palatable to read. The only comment I would make is I think it's always disconcerting when you see debt going up over time, but the comment I would make to our community is that a lot of this investment is in intergenerational assets, and we are charged with funding those assets that benefit those people into the future with future rates, as well as not only today's people paying for those. So acknowledge that climate that we're in, where we have a huge capital program over the period of the lifetime of this report, and acknowledge that funding is appropriate in that context. So thank you very much, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Councillor Gregg.
Yes, through you, Madam Mayor, just to say thank you for all the work you've put into this report. Thank you.
Thank you.
Would anyone else like to speak to the report? No. In that case, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried.
Cool.
Thank you, Gary. Next up, we have one of our meatier reports that come through this committee. We'll welcome Talia Foster to present to us our quarterly performance report. Kia ora, Talia.
Thank you. So this is the quarterly report in our new format. It's the second time we're presenting the new format to the Prosperous Committee. The report goes up to the 31st of December 24. In terms of the financial performance, the year-to-date operating shortfall of 7.9 million is 3.6 favourable compared to the budgeted deficit of 11.5. A lot of this at the moment can be put down to timing of transactions. That's not necessarily timing that will be fixed for year end, because part of that is the property buyouts where the transactions were actually pulled into last year, where we had budgeted them this year. So that's on the revenue and the expenditure side. The other large timing one is Parklands, where we have changed the strategy around that. Other than that, I might take the report as read, if that's all right. Thank you.
Thank you, Talia. I'm happy to kick off the beginning of our questions. I did have a question around the performance measures that relate to the facilities that we're currently reimagining and reviewing and even commercialising. Have any of those performance measures changed as a result of being in that process, or are they what they always have been?
For the quarterly report, they are as they were set in the long-term plan. Whether or not they are changing further, I'm not sure, but for the annual reporting process, we would still be required to report based on the long-term plan.
Great, thank you. Councillor Bowe.
Yes, through you, Madam Chair. With our property assets, are they the ones that are they going to be moved into the CCO? And if so, how will it affect this sort of reporting?
There is a mixture. The property assets does cover off parklands and the leasehold land, so most of that, yes, will move. I believe there might be some that would be retained in that property assets that wouldn't be the responsibility of the CCTO. However, the reporting side, and this is still being worked through, but the majority of the reporting it would be revenue and expenses of council still, although the CCTO would be controlling that and have the delegation to do that. So this report shouldn't have substantial changes from that. There's also discussions around whether there's additional reporting on the performance of the CCTO that potentially could come into this or another report.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Acting Mayor Brosnan.
Thank you very much, Talia, for the report. I just had a couple of comments or questions. One was, I see we have an orange light next to the housing portfolio of work around releasing the EOI. I think in the detail it talks about that governance group that was endorsed by council as well, and I know I'm a member on that, I think along with Councillor Bogan. We haven't yet had a meeting. Is potentially that delay, I just want to make sure that governance oversight isn't being lost in that process if we're now pushing timeframes toward a late EOI.
I'll need to hand over to somebody else for that one, I'm afraid. If there's anybody in there.
Steph, thank you.
Afternoon again. Through the chair, I can answer that question. So at the moment, we're in the process of, so to answer your question, no, the governance group and the oversight hasn't been missed. We're in the process of about to go out from a procurement perspective for the all of the commercial advisors for the team to be established in the coming month. And then once that is completed, we'll then be getting into the actual project itself. So within the next month, we'll be probably having our first oversight committee meeting.
Great, thank you for that assurance. And through you, Madam Chair, and I'm not sure if the right person in the room as well, I just made an observation, I think, for the second sort of quarter in a row, we haven't hit our building consent on-time targets, which is concerning to me. So I'm not sure if there's someone in the regulatory team able to perhaps give us some additional commentary on that. But as we all know, building consent timeframes are linked to our community outcomes. So I'm keen to make sure that is moving in the right direction.
It looks like we don't have anyone available, so we'll certainly add that as an action point, and we'll make sure that that information comes back to all elected members.
Great, thank you very much.
Thank you. Councillor Brown.
Kia ora, through the chair. Just thinking about the things that our community might look at and see red flags, and I see we're about 2.5 million over budget in terms of our employee benefit expense, and there's a little bit of a summary there, but just wondering if you might be able to expand on where that number, how that's been reached.
I can take that one. So just through the chair, to note that 700,000 of that variance relates to Kennedy Park and Ocean Spa, which are part of our commercial activity portfolio, which we're doing further work with. We are working through some further analysis with some of our budgeting of casuals, where we're not sure whether we've actually budgeted the additional 8% that we need to for casuals. Due to our strategy around holding vacancies and staffing levels, we do have a lot more casuals on board than we normally would, and that is actually costing us more, so we need to revisit that strategy and look at that. It's quite a balancing act with how we're going full steam ahead with our capital program, because you'll see that we are actually on pretty much almost on track with budget on the CapEx spend. So having people on board to carry that out, and then also managing the cost of that. And then also, obviously, some of that can be capitalised, so there will be a portion that we'll be able to transfer to capital. So I haven't got probably the full answer for you, but that's a bit of detail.
That's brilliant, thank you.
Yeah. Okay. And I just have one other question, actually, similarly along those lines. One of the things that I thought perhaps the community might notice in this. In our risk and assurance, we have, it's number 2 in here, strategic risk 21, not enabling our communities to become resilient. So our residual risk at the moment with that is low, but there is a comment, I think, in our traffic light section around emergency management. And just wondering if someone could provide us with a comment around where we're at with the establishment of community hubs, or what activity has gone into that so far. Thank you, Thunas.
Madam Chair, we are in the process of setting up community hubs, and we are working with GRU, with Hawke's Bay Regional Council, so it's on track at this stage. So that's why our resilience indication there is, it's partly why it's green, and it's good.
Great. Are you able to make comment about timeframes, or how far and or how many groups? Any additional little detail you can give us about where we might be at with that from a community perspective?
Madam Chair, I'll have to come back to you.
Yep.
I'm not on that detail. I'll have to give you feedback.
Fine. Thank you. Would appreciate that if we can circulate that with the action as well that Annette raised too. That'd be great. Thank you. Any further questions from the table? No? Cool. So I'm happy to move this one from the chair, that we receive the quarterly performance report. Do I have someone to second that, please? Thank you, Councillor Bogue. It's always great to get this monitoring report, get a sense of where we're at with things. I was really encouraged to read about our delivery of capital. Those are things that people see on the ground. Our community get a sense of us doing things, delivering things. So that was really, really satisfying. And congratulations to the team, to everyone involved in that work. Yeah, some really good stuff, and showing that we're moving forward, that we're doing things. So yeah, that was sort of the highlight for me, as well as some prudence and some timing things as well that were very clearly outlined. So thank you for putting that together so easily digestible for us. I'll pass to you, Councillor Bogue.
Just to add to that, I totally agree. It's a really clear report. The graphics are great, and I particularly like a lot of the photographs of views of Napier I hadn't seen before. So it's very accessible to the public and to us. So thank you for putting it together.
Anyone else like to speak? No? Oh, well, I'll put the motion. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against? Carried. Thanks, Tara. Thank you. Our final paper for this committee meeting is our submission schedule update from the 29th of August to the 10th of February this year, and I'll welcome Gemma to present the paper.
Kia ora koutou, ko te maraho. So this purpose of this report is just to provide an update on the process that was introduced at the 29th of August Prosperous meeting. Just the new process of researching opportunities for Napier City Council to submit towards the development of legislation and policy. So since I've submitted the report, I've got 3 updates on submissions that were kind of in process. So the Transport and Infrastructure Committee consultation on the framework for implementing time of use schemes. So Infrastructure has confirmed that they won't be submitting on this bill. It's still in the first reading stage at the moment, and this first part primarily applies to Tier 1 cities like Auckland, Tauranga, Hamilton, Wellington and Christchurch. So as it doesn't directly impact our region at this stage, we won't be providing a submission as yet, though that might change if more information becomes available. The second update is the Waikato-Kotahi New Zealand Transport Authority consultation on retaining current speed limits. So Infrastructure won't be submitting on this one, as the speed reversals proposal involves reverting speed limits to pre-2020 levels along certain highways. And in Hawke's Bay, this only applies to 3 small sections on the State Highway 5 between Rangitaiki and Eskdale, which are north of our boundary. The 7.55 kilometre section of State Highway 51 from Marine Parade to Clive is not included in the consultation and is set to revert from 80 kilometres now to 100 kilometres now by July 25 without public input. So given this, there's no basis to make a submission. And the third update is again from infrastructure on the local government water services bill, which was circulated to elected members sort of last week, and that submission has been made as a joint submission with our neighbouring councils.
Thank you, Gemma. Really interesting to have the context from each of our directorates as to why they choose to or are able to and why they're not submitting on particular things. I'll open for questions. Councillor Bogue.
Thank you, through you, Madam Chair. This is just, you may not be able to answer this, I wouldn't expect you to, Gemma, but and I'd be interested to know the changes to the speed limits that we're having to revert to. I'd really like to know how much it's going to cost our council to change those signs, and I'm wondering if that could be put down as an action point, please.
Absolutely, Councillor Bogue. Happy to take that offline. And I didn't think it was us that actually paid for that.
Are they
but
all state highway?
Oh, I'm not, is there someone in the room that can confirm that for me? But
Yes, I believe they're all state highway.
Yeah, so no cost
All
to
of
us.
them, okay.
Councillor Mawson.
Yeah, sorry, just to note, just through the chair, just to note, a lot of the safety improvements have been done along that Marine Parade section to allow this to happen. So.
Thank you, Councillor Mawson. Anything further? No? Well, I'm happy to move from the chair that we received the report and that we note the submissions that were made during that period by council. Do I have a seconder for that? Thank you, Councillor Mawson. I think I've said everything that I need to say. Nothing further. Anyone else? No, we'll put it. All those in favour, please say aye.
Aye.
Against, carried. Nice and easy. Thank you, Gemma.
Thank you.
Well, we will adjourn this meeting and we'll have, my apologies, we will close this meeting and we'll take a short break to make way for our people and places and so that Councillor McGrath and myself can swap around. Thank you.